Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collider cast, episode 85. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
I'm Andy Lewis. That's a solid start right there. We haven't even got halfway through the names, and we've up.
I'm out of practice.
and just for the record, to finish it off, I'm Rory Summers.
In my defence, I'm sure there used to be a this is the order we're going in bit at the top of the document, and it seems to have vanished.
After 85 episodes, I thought everyone would know by now.
I'd have thought after nearly 40 years on this planet, John, you'd know your own name.
I know a name. I don't know whether I'm going before you or... Yeah.
I know.
Anyway.
It's always Steve first and it's me last. And I'm pretty sure it's always Andy second.
No, I'm second when we say goodbye. But I'm third at the start.
Oh my God. You see how difficult this is? And don't forget that I've had next to no sleep for the last 3 years.
3 weeks, John. 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
Maybe in your time frame.
I've had next to no sleep for the last 3 years.
Speed of light, John.
Just time passes differently when you've had next to no sleep. Slightly delirious.
Travelling at the speed of child.
Ooh.
Well, there's 4 of us.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I could re-record that intro. Do you know what? I can't be bothered. But, well, hello, guys.
Hello.
You're all here. It's a full house.
Welcome.
It's nice to be back.
It's nice to be back.
This is what Steve and I have been doing for the last 3 recordings.
Talking bullshit.
Yes. Well, the last 83 recordings.
Why change the habit of a lifetime?
Exactly. You know, I mean, people listen for some reason. I think that's one of them. The only one.
Because we're entertaining.
I'd like to think so. Maybe laughing at us, not with us, but, you know, whatever.
At you. Oh, they can't see you, so it's not that.
No, I definitely have a face for radio, I think.
There's a reason we all do this podcast.
Yes.
And he's not
Will you
aware of
guys
that.
do video? No. No, we will not.
For your sakes, no. So what have you guys been up to?
Oh, God. What have we been up to?
I've
Not
built my
much.
Privet Drive studio.
Ooh.
Yes, we are speaking live from Harry Potter's bedroom, aren't we?
We are. I am currently. So if you hear random thundering on my recording, it's because the dog is legging it downstairs. Because I'm under the stairs right now. And my dog is fat and got short legs. So it will just sound like thunder.
Nothing wrong with those things.
Oh, goodness. So I didn't realise your little your cubby hole was actually under the stairs. I was trying to work out where it could be because I saw the photo of it just with the mic and the stuff around it. I thought, what the bloody hell's that in his house?
No, it's kind of the only. This is now my little man cave. There's got some space for the laptop and the monitor and all my D&D books under the desk and my paints, and that's it.
Excellent. So it's a sort of nerd porn room, isn't it, really?
It kind of is, yeah. I mean, the vacuum cleaner's in here somewhere, but it's right at the back, and no one can get it anymore. So
It's not important.
Only you.
I'm not the only one who thought that.
You are the only.
I think you
And
are.
I'm now
actually.
not the only one who's thinking it, thanks to the beauty of audio recording.
You're the only one that's still thinking it. Everyone else is trying to forget it. I must say, there is something to be said about having a very small room with lots of soundproofing on the sides, because is it just me, or does he sound particularly good today?
It does sound, yeah,
Yeah. It should
sound
make
better.
a big difference.
almost professional.
Almost professional. Yeah.
The quality of the audio is professional. The content.
Is to be
dear,
determined.
No idea.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, that's been us to a T, right from the start. Although, to be fair, we barely had the gear to start with. But never
Well,
mind.
yes.
That was
True.
3 years ago. 4 years ago. I can't remember.
Oh, 85 episodes ago.
So yes, I've been trying to survive on very little sleep, and it turns out I'm quite good at it. Kaz thinks that I have some sort of superpower, because I'm still sat there at like 1 o'clock in the morning with the tiny human, just lying asleep on my belly, and she comes down. She's like, "How are you still awake? How are you not passed out?" I'm like, "I'm just reading my Kindle, listening to this podcast."
Yeah, but you've never slept, John. All
Yeah.
the time I've known you, it's like you go to bed at like 2 and wake up at 6, and you look fresh as a daisy when you wake up. And I'm like, oh, I have like 7.5 hours sleep, and I'm grumpy.
There's your problem, you see. Too much sleep.
Well, no, it's not. If I have less than 7.5, I'm in a murderous rampage. I've got to admit, actually, if anyone did bump into me at Aircon and I was either aloof, grumpy, or seemed to ignore you, it's because I hadn't had any pre-decent. I had like 8 hours sleep for 3 days in a row. And the couple of times I thought to myself, somebody said, "Oh, are you Steve from the podcast?" I was like, "I kind of went, all right." Afterwards, I went, "Did I just be really grumpy to that person? Because I've been really grumpy to everyone else."
Wow.
So I do really apologise if I did that.
You become a true celebrity. You're just ignoring the fans.
I don't want to be that kind of person, though.
Get more sleep then.
Listen, I'm trying. Insomnia is a terrible burden.
Train
It
yourself.
is.
I think I need about 7 most nights. If I have 6, I'm okay. 8 is too much, and I end up in a bit of a sort of zombie-like daze. Somewhere between 6 and 7 for me is okay.
Well, I've got one of these health tracking things at the moment, which is actually telling me how much sleep I need, and that's terrifying.
Really?
Because it's like, yeah, because if I have like 7 hours, then it says, well, you need to catch up. So it says the next night you need 8.5. Well, then I don't get enough sleep that night. And he goes, you do realise you need 9.5 hours sleep tonight. And it's like, whoa, okay.
That's a lot of
Doesn't work
stress.
like that, though, does it? I thought your body kind of makes it up.
Man.
No, it doesn't quite fully, and this is supposed to monitor other parts of what you're doing during the day to compensate. And so far, actually, it's been really accurate. When it reckons I've had shit sleep, I've been grumpy. And when it reckons I've had really great sleep, I've woken up in the morning and gone, ha-ha, right, let's do something.
You need a piece of technology to do that. Surely your wife or us can tell you you're a miserable bastard, surely.
But we always tell him that. All
Exactly.
the time.
You don't need a piece of tech to do that. You just need friends.
The tech is telling me why I'm a miserable bastard.
Yeah, we could probably tell you that too.
Sometimes it's
Mostly.
good to have something to point a finger at rather than just, I'm angry and I don't quite know why.
It's always good to have someone or something to blame.
Definitely.
Indeed. And when Andy's not around,
You start falling short of excuses.
No, I just take the blame because I'm not there. It's like not turning up to a meeting at work. You end up with all the actions.
So I see you've got an exciting birthday plan this year, Andy.
Oh yes, finally we've got our kitchen sorted. We've got a plan for it anyway.
in case this is your first time listening, we are a tabletop gaming episode, but we will get to it eventually. You just have to get this out of the system first.
Yes. No, we're finally getting our new kitchen sorted out. So towards the end of July, that's getting ripped out. The 1980s hellhole is being removed, and we're getting new sexy 21st century stuff put in, which is ace. So I'm quite
Nice.
looking forward to that. We'll have a hob that will boil water. Now there's a novelty.
What is it? Gas, electric, induction?
We're getting a dual fuel range, so
Oh,
gas and
okay.
electric. But yes, the
Good.
current hob is shit, and the jets are a bit wimpy. So you can put a pan of water onto the jet, and it doesn't boil it. You can be sat there for 20 minutes, and it won't boil. That's
That's
brilliant.
not good. How
No,
have
it's
you
not.
been cooking then?
Well, you can boil the water first in the kettle and throw it in, and it'll just about sort of maintain its temperature there. But it is a bit wimpy, so it's not hot enough. So if you get like a cast iron skillet or something, and you're doing a steak, it doesn't get hot enough to cook steak, not properly anyway.
I'm just suddenly reminded of that episode of Bottom, if you ever watched Bottom, where
I did watch Bottom.
the gas meter man are coming to read the meter, and they have to turn them all off, and they ask him for it. They say, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And we're like, "Yes, please." Realising they can't cook it, so they just put the kettle on the floor. Be ready soon.
Oh, I missed
Is that
Bottom.
where they're stealing next door's gas?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. With
Yeah.
Mr. Rottweiler next door.
That's right.
It was played
That's
by
it.
the guy who did the voice of the Tetley T-Man, didn't he?
Really?
Was it?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, he was also the guy. I've been watching the Alien films again recently, and he's the prison warden in Alien 3 as well, which always took me as a bit weird. The Tetley T-Man was the prison warden.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I've forgotten his name now. This is Rumour Control.
I recognise the actor, but I couldn't tell you what his name was, is what I'm saying. My memory's not great under normal circumstances, and now...
But somehow you've still managed to find time to play Elite Dangerous, John. At my recommendation, I might add.
Yes, so the one thing with having a small human who won't go to sleep for large periods of time unless he's lying on you, I've discovered the magic of slings. Ha!
Oh,
You put this small human in the sling, strap him to your chest, and then you've basically got 2, maybe 3 hours, if you're careful, of time where you need to stay awake so that you don't fall asleep and crush the small human. So you might as well do something, and I've completed the Final Fantasy VII Remake, So I need something else. And
Well,
someone said that Elite Dangerous is a massive time sink, and I
Yes.
thought previously I shouldn't get this game because it looks dangerously addictive. And having played it for 2.5 hours the other night, I can confirm it is dangerously addictive.
it is. And the good thing is you can't complete it. You just
Yes,
keep
true.
going and going and going and going.
It's like
And you have
Factorio.
literally a galaxy to explore.
Thing is, I've purchased this game
You should play it, Steve.
and I haven't downloaded it yet.
You should play it. You should
It's
get
fun.
it. Very, very, very good. It's even better on an Oculus Rift. Oh,
I need to try that, but I'm worried that it's going to make me sick. So I'll try it on yours before I commit to spending any more unnecessary technology that I don't really need.
So you can throw up all over his computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
it'll be
Sensible.
fine.
I've got a PlayStation VR, and there are some games like Eve Valkyrie, which is a 3D fly around in space sim kind of game, makes me sick as a dog. Like 5-10 minutes, I then need at least half an hour to an hour before I'm starting to feel right again.
Oh dear.
So it doesn't bode well. In fact, playing Elite Dangerous the other day, just on a reasonable monitor, I started to feel slightly queasy. Which
Really?
is weird.
Yeah,
So I didn't
maybe,
used to get that when I used to play computer games.
maybe you shouldn't play Elite Dangerous on Oculus then.
No, I think I need to test it.
All of a sudden, Andy's invite is being slowly rescinded here. You just see it's like reeling it back in.
Maybe
Yeah.
not. I don't particularly want vomit all over my desk. But anyway, we shall see. You might be all right. You never know.
So I have managed to acquire one more game, though, despite the fact that I'm finding zero time to actually play any board games. And that's Shobu.
Is that the Smirk and Dagger one or Smirk and Master?
Smirk
One
and
of
Dagger,
those,
that's
Smirk
it.
and Dagger.
Is this the one that looks like you can play it on a pirate ship with leftover bits?
In the sense that it's 4 wooden boards, a piece of rope, and a load of stones. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I talked about this previously, and I tried to get hold of a review copy, which apparently got lost in the post somewhere. But it's a great little game, fun little thing that I played a little bit at the UK Games Expo last year, and have been trying to find a copy of ever since. So Mr. Andy Grant of the show's Friends was able to supply me with one. Thanks very much.
Cool.
And I just need to find some time and someone to play it with now.
I really like the look of that game. So
Yeah, it's a sort of chess-like kind of game where the move that you take on the first part of the turn affects a different board, has to affect a different part of the board, and the first move that you make has to be passive. It can't affect anyone else's stones, and the second one can shove people's stones off the side.
yeah, I think from what I've seen of this game, it reminds me a lot of Tao Long, Way of the Dragon.
Mhm.
I think it's going to hopefully, if it feels anything like that, but in a different kind of presentation, without the rondelle.
Felt like a slightly more aggressive version of drafts. More aggressive, more complicated version of drafts.
Did you play this? It was at the expo, wasn't it? Last year, was it? No, very keen to have a look at that.
So we'll see if we can get some plays between us when lockdown warms up, or maybe we can try and do something via video. Because at least there's no cards or anything to hide.
Oh yeah,
You're
it's
just
perfect
looking at the
information,
stones.
isn't it?
So it's like a
What?
video camera on one side of the
The other
board, and away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
the other thing we could do, John, we could actually do family meetups and let the kids just play.
Yeah, I mean, Sam's quite young at the moment. He doesn't
Yeah,
really
well-
play. He sort of lies there and makes
And
noises.
the best way for him to learn is to be bullied by a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old into how to do it. I'm just thinking this could be a good excuse to meet up and play board games.
We'll have to see what we can do under the rules.
I mean reason. It's good reason to meet up and let the kids kind of meet new kids.
Mental health's sake. Let's do it. Cool.
Should we do some news?
So, the first thing, let's talk about some Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, because we never
Yes.
talk about that.
No, we don't mention it at all, ever.
No.
Every year, D&D announce a big new adventure pack, a big new, they call it their big story, their main story for D&D 5th edition. And this year, they've just announced Rime of the Frostmaiden, which is due to come out about September.
Not the Ancient
Providing
Mariner.
things go to chords. Not the Ancient Mariner, no. It's due to come out about September, but it might get delayed because they've announced recently they're having trouble with the printers.
Ooh.
So Odyssey of Theros.
They've run out of yellow ink.
Odyssey of Theros, which is the Greek one, was supposed to have already been out by now, and you can get it on D&D Beyond, but it's actually not going to be out until July because of the whole COVID-19 thing stopping the large scale of printing that basically D&D needs.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this Rime of the Frostmaiden, but I wish it had been released 2 years ago. Because this adventure is set in Icewind Dale, and it's all about Auril, which is the goddess of winter. Which is basically how I started off Andy's campaign. And then they did this little section, this little thing that took him from level 1 to 5, and I tried to get him into Storm King's Thunder. And basically they refused. It didn't matter what plot hook I put in front of them, they went the opposite direction. And if the Rime of the Frostmaiden had been out, I would have gone, right, we're doing that, it fits. It would have been brilliant. So I might be doing this and running this as a kind of a sequel to the previous adventure. I might have to tweak some bits, but that's my plan. So I think this is on my purchase list, basically, because it fits in neatly to what we've already been playing.
Excellent.
Sounds like fun. I think
we could dusting off Haval. Yeah.
It won't be dusting off old adventurers, unfortunately, because it's starting from level 1.
Okay. That's right.
No!
I've got some great ideas.
This, unfortunately, I think is actually a bit of a problem with the 5th edition stuff now. There is nothing for, like, apart from one book, which is the Undermountain book, there is nothing published officially by Wizards of the Coast for levels 15 through 20.
Okay.
Yep.
All the published adventures go from, like, 1 to 15 or thereabouts.
It's funny because when you generate your character, you're looking at those later things thinking, oh, it'd be amazing once I get to that thing.
Yeah,
and then you're like, but I'm actually only ever going to play until 11. Ooh.
It's a tease.
Unless you do a homebrew campaign, really.
Yeah.
I think it probably gets less, I'm not going to say less interesting, it probably gets more dramatic when you get higher levels, but it also gets to be a bit of a cluster because everyone's so powerful and you're doing sort of 50 hit points of damage every single hit. You're either, you're facing dragons as run-of-the-mill enemies when you're running around at level 20. The only thing that can take you down is the bloody Terrask. And there's only one of them. Rumours, apparently.
Yeah, I think you just need to have enemies that scale with your abilities.
Yeah, but the problem is the enemies scale, and you end up the problem. I mean, I haven't actually experienced this firsthand, but this is what I've been reading from everyone else. You get to the point where combat now takes ages. Because rather than it being like, oh, everyone gets 2 or 3 attacks and the combat's over, everyone's now got like a massive list of attacks they can do and special abilities. So combat takes an absolute age to get through. And it kind of ruins the whole... D&D's based on this adventuring day. So the game's supposed to balance around you doing everything in a day and using lots of short rests. So you're supposed to do like 8 medium encounters, is it? Or 8 easy encounters, 6 medium, or 4 hard, or something like that.
Yeah.
So to play the game properly, you're supposed to have a lot of small encounters with short rests in between. But the problem is when you get to like 8 and 20, every encounter that's like an easy encounter is like, right, okay, I just cost, power word kill on the main boss. Oh well, there he goes.
Job done. That's it. Yeah. It's very. I guess it's probably quite swingy. You can either get very lucky or very not. And because everyone's got literally hundreds of hit points, it just takes ages to whittle them down. Unless you just go, ooh, wish. Done. Bye. See you later.
But at some point, we're going to have to try it. I think we're going to have to try it out firsthand. But I've got to admit, it scares me as a DM.
Well, I've read through some of the Undermountain book, because that may or may not feature in your future, Mr. Tudor. We'll see. Or rather Raymond's future, but the later stuff does really just seem to be big bastard bosses, one after the other, because they're the only things that can challenge a level 17 to 20 character. You have literally an army of liches and things like that, which, whilst entertaining, probably gets a little repetitive.
Not that you're obsessed with liches or anything.
No, not at all. No.
Not to deepen this rabbit hole even further, but I suppose that depends on what the objective of that encounter is. Not every encounter is always about killing the opposition. So if your objective is to seize this, what's it, then you just make your monsters therefore a very fast and sneaky. Therefore, your objective isn't just about killing it; it's about capturing that thing back or rescuing so and so.
Or protecting. That's always a bastard.
Yes,
When have you got?
you make your encounters more dynamic and less quite linear, and that.
True.
And I think that's a major criticism of almost every like official D&D thing I've ever ran. It's a lot of line them up and knock them down encounters, rather than having something interesting happen in the encounter.
Like turn one of your characters into a small orc baby to distract the orcs in the encounter and then stab it in the eye. I mean, it worked.
It worked, but again, that was just a straight up fight, wasn't it? It was just like, here's some orcs. Let's have a fight. Yeah, that's opened up some bizarre possibilities to role-playing in that group.
Yes, it has.
A group of people who really knew nothing about D&D coming in, and they're trying lots of crazy things.
Nice.
And I'm going like, that shouldn't work.
Oh, but it does.
It does.
You can always try.
I think some of the most entertaining encounters come from random stuff that people try, and you just think, I mean, technically, I suppose there's nothing stopping you doing that. It's just, why would you do that?
Whilst on the subject of D&D, Baldur's Gate 3 is out for pre-release. Is it in August?
Yes, so an alpha release in August, yeah.
Yes, which I am very keen on.
Yes, I've been watching a couple of those gameplay videos, and I'm rather interested in this.
It does
Have
look
there
nice.
been some new ones beyond that that kind of walkthrough bit that they did before?
Well, when they announced Rime of the Frostmaiden was part of D&D Live, which was like their big event, because what they do is when they release the new story announcements, they have like a big live event, loads of people playing D&D, like Karen Gillan,
David Harbour, Brandon Roth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all doing these different D&D sessions, and one of them was that Sven, who is the head of development team for Baldur's Gate 3, running through another demo. It was different to the last one.
Ooh.
Showed him doing an attack against some goblins in a town and going into the Underdark against some phase spiders. And it was really good. I mean, the thing is, it's proper D&D. It's not like this. Like Baldur's Gate was a little bit abstracted. This feels like they've gone and tried to make it feel like the real game as much as possible.
Why do you say Baldur's Gate 2 feels abstract?
Because it was real time.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, yeah. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but D&D is not a real. Yeah, D&D is not a real time game, so it had to make some adjustments in there.
Mm.
This is like you get turns, and it's a full 5th edition rule set. So you'll have your move, you'll have your dashes, you'll have your, all your spells will be there. They've gone and gone full for the D&D 5th edition rules.
Excellent.
And apparently there's also things like when you speak to people, you can fail a persuasion test, and that's it. They'll just refuse to speak to you after that, and then you'll go find another way around the problem.
Bitch.
Sounds like fun.
It does.
The one thing I would say though is I don't think should be called Baldur's Gate 3.
No, that I think they should start a new saga because the last one kind of ended rather finally.
Well, yeah, and it seems to be a completely different game to actual Baldur's Gate.
Mm.
It's a different system and all that. In fact, has anyone played Divinity Original Sin 2?
No.
It's basically it's the same development team, and that was their last game. And this is basically what they've seen of Baldur's Gate 3 is Original Sin 2 with the D&D rules and Sword Coast setting on top of it. Now I'm 50 hours into Original Sin 2 at the moment, and it is a fantastic game, and just making me want to play Baldur's Gate 3 even more. Actually,
No, I haven't played that, but it does look cool. Very pretty.
well worth a look. It's every so often it'll be on a sale. It's like stupidly cheap at the moment as well, like £10.
I still need to finish Planescape Torment. You sold it to me, Steve, years ago, and I still haven't finished it.
I sold you my physical copy, didn't
You
I?
did. I still got it. The 4 CDs or whatever it is that it came on. I started it. I got a few hours in, and then it just kind of waned off. And I really should finish it because the hovering talking skull was quite entertaining. So I need to go back to that.
Personally, I think that was the best of that series, just because of the plot. But yes, Divinity Original Sin 2, well worth a go.
Excellent.
Although the combat's bloody hard at times. Basically, because everything catches fire, and so most games are basically just everything's on fire. Let's just hope I can survive the fire.
Just fire everywhere, fire.
Just fire everywhere.
This is fine.
Speaking of video games,
Yes.
Glass Cannon Studios, not to be confused with the Glass Cannon Network, have announced they're making a board game version of Frostpunk.
What is Frostpunk?
Now, Frostpunk is a city building game from 11 Studios where the apocalypse has happened and the sun is fading and the temperatures are dropping like you wouldn't believe.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone moves as far to the warmest area as they can. And they basically, it's like almost, I think it's supposed to be set. The setting timing is a bit weird. It feels like it's a little bit Victorian steampunk in some way. But what you've got is you're in a crater to try and get out of the wind, and you've got this massive coal-powered core in the middle of the city, which heats the city.
Cool.
And you have to build like shelters and hospitals and workshops and things like that. But you also have to manage the temperature. So the core heats like a certain amount. Then you have to build like extra heaters and then try and get coal and wood and steel and things like that. So it's like almost like a survival-based city builder.
Okay, I want this game now.
It's set in an alternate 1886. There you go.
It's one of my favourite years.
Is it? What a random.
Sure.
What are the chances?
What are the chances?
1 year after Doc Brown went back in time to the Wild West.
It is, yeah.
Oh, it is. But here's the thing to get you interested. And Andy, I think's eyebrows might go up here. It's designed by the chap who made the This War of Mine board game.
Oh.
And...
right, there's more.
Go on, Andy. Can you remember his name?
No.
I'll look it up now. You have to say it now.
I'll know it when you tell me it. Is it Jacob something or other? Jacob I can't remember. No.
It is, but yeah, designed by... I'm going to butcher his name, so I do apologise. Jacob Wisiewski.
Wisiewski, yes.
Yes. And Adam Kupinski.
Ooh, hello.
Hello.
That perked you all up, didn't it? So designer of Nemesis and Lords of Hellas is also working on it.
Oh, shiny.
Okay, I'm in.
Yes.
Now.
Well, I've got to admit, I've been playing I've been playing Frostpunk, and I absolutely love it, although I am terrible at it. I get about 20 days, and then everyone leaves and kicks me out in the cold. But with those two involved, and this, I'm just in. Yeah, I'm the same. Shut up and take my money.
Is it on Steam? Just asking for a friend.
Yes, the game is on Steam.
Okay, I'll be having.
It might even be in the Steam sale.
Oh yeah, that's on at the moment. There's another bit of news. The Steam sale is on. I realise we're board gamers, but there are actually quite a few games on the Steam sale, like board games, like Lords of Waterdeep is about £3. Scythe,
Elite
I think,
was
is
about
on
£6.
Yeah, Elite Dangerous is on. Scythe, I think, is half price, about £7. There's a bunch of other stuff as well that's on offer as well. So that's definitely worth checking out if you want digital versions of board games.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's quite a few on there. Frostpunk is on there. It is 60% off at the moment, so it is 10 of your British pounds.
Oh, hello. No, Rory, no. I don't have enough time to do things I want to do, let alone do more things that I want to do.
Click.
It's getting dangerously close. Anyway, that is a job for future Andy.
When we say future Andy, we mean as soon as we've stopped recording.
I don't think he's going to make it to the end of this podcast. Yeah. When there's a lull in the conversation and it's obvious that he doesn't need to pay attention to this, but like when John's describing a board game or something.
Oh, that does look pretty.
Yeah, so that should be coming to Kickstarter, I think, September, October.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's good. Yes, that means that the current wave of Kickstarters will have passed. And my bank account will have recovered.
Exactly. Plan ahead a bit.
This is good timing. Obviously, based on the assumption I don't back anything between now and then. Yeah.
I know of one thing you're probably backing, but we'll mention that in a future podcast.
Is it Andy's kitchen?
No, Elora's backing that.
Nice.
Although, to be fair, I have just spent £300 on floor tiles. Yeah, tiles are expensive. That's the floor. £300 on a floor.
Doesn't sound horrendous.
No, I mean, that was on offer too as well. There should have been about 400, but never mind. The range is the eye-watering. Well, I say the eye-watering amount as a singular item. The range is an eye-watering amount of money.
Yeah, they are not cheap bits of kit, but they are good.
No, they are very, very good. Hey, we're drifting off topic again.
Rory, why don't you bring us back on?
Oh, yeah, so...
Back to D&D.
Back to D&D, or role-playing games generally, is that Inkarnate, the guys that do fabulous map-building tools, have just released this week their beta for their battle maps. So this allows you to not only build fantastic maps that encompass like the entire globe or a region for your setting, but you can now do very lovely detailed battle maps. So dungeons, the inns, taverns, churches, or forests. I think they look particularly good for exterior battle maps. I think they're really nice. But yeah, it's fantastic. I've had a lot of fun playing with Incarnate recently, trying to build the map for my homebrew world. Go check it out. Cool. It's really worth it. I think you do still get it. You get access to it if you have the free Incarnate, but it's...
Yeah, you have limited access to the assets on the free version. So you can still do stuff, but you can't do a lot. But you can actually do some pretty good world maps on Incarnate just on the free stuff as well.
Yes, you can. I decided to take the plunge when I needed to make a road between two cities, and I was like, well, I'm just going to get pro for a month to see how good it is. I've never looked back.
Because that's subscription based, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So I think it works out as about $25 a year or $5 a month. So it's for bang for your buck. It's bloody fantastic. Especially if you're going to do, because what I've also been using it for is to create individual scenes. So you can do a whole like atlas where you can zoom in and like blow your buildings up as massive, big as you can. So I can just go, here's the pub that you're about to go to. Here's the stables next to it and some trees around it. So I was like, right, you arrive at this pub and I can then put a splash page up on Roll20. There it is. And there's a guy that you can populate your NPCs and put your own assets in there as well. So it's really nice for kind of setting atmospheric landmarks like that.
That's really
Sounds pretty cool.
Really cool.
Now, I'm right in thinking you've also been using Dungeon Painter Studio, is that right?
Yes. So DPS, Dungeon Painter Studio, which is through Steam from Pyromancer. It hasn't had an update for a long time, but it's due one. I think later this month, we're about the end of it, should be in the next few weeks, which is going to increase the amount of stuff they do for their battle maps. And I think Dungeon Painter Studio is a fantastic piece of kit for, what is it, 10 quid, 12 quid? And that's a one-off.
Oh, is it? Is that all it is?
Yeah, it's not much at all. And that is not a subscription. So once you've got it, and it's brilliant. And then it's got a really good following, really good community that have built up fantastic assets. You can just download graveyards, and you can make fantastic looking graveyards. Download cliffs, and you can make some really great rocky passes and waterfalls and stuff like that. Really, really good. So what I think I'm going to be doing, I'll be doing a lot of stuff, especially my dungeons, my interior, because Dungeon Painter Studio's just got more assets at the moment. I can do all my base stuff in Dungeon Painter Studio, save it as a PNG, import it into Inkarnate, and add a load of After Effects afterwards. So like slips of water and pools and more cool shadows and things like that.
Wow.
Or if I wanted to add snow, so I think, Steve, you joked about having a tundra, so I can make a dungeon or a building, say ruins, but the snow effect in Dungeon Painter Studio is quite crap. So I can export it and then do the really cool snow effect in Incarnate, and it would be a doddle.
Okay. See, I have purchased Dungeon Draft.
Ooh.
But I haven't had a chance to properly play with it yet, so I don't know how good it is, and I've not used any. I've used Incarnate for the major maps, but I've not used it for this dungeon maps yet, so I can't compare.
So Dungeon Maps is the one that has the really cool like dynamic lighting effect, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
Dungeon Draft does.
Really
so what you can do is, the dynamic lighting you get in Roll20.
Oh yeah.
You can basically make a static version of that. So you put the walls in, and then you can light up like torches or what, and light sources. So it automatically makes those shadows and light sources for you.
Which is
nice.
really, really nice. So you build like a big like dining chamber, like a Viking dining hall, plunk a big fire pit in the middle, and it will cast all the shadows naturally in that room.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So can you build a map directly from Incarnate as well? You don't have to import anything in, or does it?
Don't have to import anything in. you can build it from scratch. But one of the tips I've found is go on to the Inkarnate subreddit or Pinterest or wherever. You can just take a copy of a map, upload it as an image, and essentially paint over it. So it really helps you to get your scales right. One of the things is like, how do you make sure the mountains are the right size to the trees and get your coastlines, and just copy and literally paint over the top of it.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's
So
very
have
cool.
you given any time to campaign Cartographer as well whilst on the same subject? Because I got that the other day to have a look around in it, and honestly, the interface for that is like, it's about as user-friendly as a nuclear submarine. It's horrendous.
I picked up Campaign Cartographer at the expo last year because it was on, if we bought like a hard copy essentially, it was on a really good sale, and I was really excited to get into it and start playing with it, and I found it immediately frustrating. Just trying to do just a simple landmass was just a ball ache. Was absolutely, and then you go online looking for tutorials, and the tutorials haven't been updated for 3, 4, 5 years. So when they're clicking on this box and doing something, it's not only does that symbol look different in the new version, it's called something different and it's in a different location.
Oh, God.
Right.
Oh, what a pain.
Thanks a bunch. I think Campaign Cartographer is going to be far more detailed. So if you want to do a really, really detailed, huge map, world map, where you want to be able to zoom in and zoom straight back out again, Campaign Cartographer might be what you're after, but you are going to have to get over that hurdle of learning how to use it. Incarnate just jump straight in.
That sounds good. Okay.
Campaign Cartographer is currently on the Humble Bundle.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So, yeah, you get a lot for your money, but if you're saying it's a pain in the arse to use, then maybe it's not worth going for.
I think if you want to do interior locations, I can strongly recommend Dungeon Painter Studio.
As can I have used it after Rory's tutorial for me, and it is very good. Once you get over the fact that, where the hell is all this stuff? Oh, they're in different, they're in different areas, right? Depends on which tool you're using. And there they are. There we go, and away you go. And it is really just literally paint your dungeon. It's brilliant. Just big box, drag, there's your corridor. Big box, there's your room. Brilliant. Really, really easy.
You can link it up to Donjon as well if you want. So you can do a Donjon randomly generated dungeon, and you import it directly. Go, I want this floor and these walls done. And if that's all, and then if you just go, right, I'm just going to drop some props in here and there, straight into Roll20. There you go, got a dungeon. You can do it in 10 minutes.
Bloody hell.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I backed something called Project Deus from Dungeon Fog, which does a similar sort of job, but it hasn't been delivered yet, or at least I've not checked in on it recently. So it might have been delivered and I haven't had time to look at it.
See, what is actually pretty cool, if you want something in a hurry, One Page Dungeon, which is the website.
Yeah, they're really good.
It's just, you put in some variables, you hit go, and it just makes you a dungeon. And it's really good, actually. It's in the old Dyson style. You know what that is? It's the style that's they used for Waterdeep Dragon Heist and Waterdeep Dungeons of the Mad Mage.
Yeah.
They used, they actually got Dyson logos, was the name of the chap, to actually do the drawings.
Oh, cool.
And it just makes a quick dungeon in that. It looks impressive right from the start. You don't actually have to do anything else.
Yeah, I found
That sounds ideal.
Something I did in my campaign, I used One Page Dungeon to create a dungeon for me. And then I just imported it into DPS as an image, painted over the top so I could give it, so that way all my dungeons that my players went into had a uniform style, a uniform appearance. But that takes a lot of the thinking out of it, of designing a dungeon. One of these generators do it for you, and I just make it look the way I want it to.
Nice. Sweet.
Was that Project Deus, was it, John?
Yeah, which I think you can still pre-order. DEIOS. Dungeon Fog.
There's quite a few of these out now, then.
Yeah, sounds like, that's like 4 or 5 we've just mentioned now.
Well, that does look rather pretty, actually, that Project Deus. Oh, look at that.
It's the same people that do Worldforge.
Ah, okay.
Or at least it's the same people talking about it on this reveal. Yeah, it's them.
See, Worldforge is one that intrigues me.
Is that another version of it then? Another one of these things?
No, Worldforge is like a campaign management tool.
Right.
So you put all the information about your world, about your towns, about your NPCs and things like that in it. It's just like something to keep all your notes as a DM.
But what Worldforge is really good is that if you pay for the subscription version, you essentially create it as a wiki. So I can send you, if I created my homebrew world, I can then release parts of it to you guys as the players, as a wiki, so you could follow all the this NPC was found in this location. You can jump back and forth, and just as you finish a game, I can unlock new areas for you.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It breaks it down really nicely. So you go, right, this is stuff about money. This is stuff about the gods. This is about like I said, NPCs. You can have it really broad or really small, really clever. But I think that Worldforge looks really cool. But to get a decent level of functionality, I think it's quite pricey.
These things usually are.
All the map making tools you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I think that was quite a good roundup, guys.
Comprehensive.
We have a segue into the games bit as well.
Ooh.
No.
Yeah, we've actually played some games since we last talked, or at least some of us have.
Some of us have.
I think we should definitely move straight into Cartographers after talking about
Exactly, that was my segue. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well done,
Clever.
Rory.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
For picking up really obvious hints. Thanks, Andy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there you go, you see. Well, kind of two things, actually, because we could talk about Cartographers, obviously, because that's making maps and things.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also the one on the top of this list as well, whilst we're talking about D&D.
Yeah.
You see, there's loads of ways in.
Let's do Cartographers first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Steve and I, with our friend Adam and Alora as well, actually the two of us sort of played here because we have many, many computers. We played a game called Cartographers, which is set kind of in the role player universe. So if any of you are familiar with role player,
love it.
We'll talk about that later.
Still haven't bought it.
Have you not?
No.
Chop chop. It's really good.
I know.
So this is set in the role player, ROLL player, universe, I think, because at least it's made by the same people. And it says a role player game, so I'm guessing it is. And it is it is supposed to be a draw, a flip and write. So flip cards over, draw on map, pretty pictures. However, because we played online, it's actually more of a tile placement game. And do you know what? It really works as a tile placement game. So I think they should release like a nice deluxe version of it and do that, because it would be ace. But the idea is that you are building a map of various features of, was it villages, lakes, hills, and forests. And other things. And if you have,
monsters.
And there are monsters that rock up, yes. And the idea is basically you flip a card, and there are 4, I think it's for the number of, it presumably scales for the number of players, but
there's 4 objectives which are the same regardless of the number of players.
Okay, yes.
In fact, actually, it doesn't scale for the number of players because it's a flip and right.
It doesn't matter.
You can have as many players as you want, yeah.
Fair point,
really?
Yeah. So yeah, there are 4 scoring conditions, and they vary throughout the game. So you have like card A and B for the first round, and cards D and C for the second round, and A and D for the third, whatever it is. And each of those will have a series of conditions and scoring conditions on them. And the idea is obviously to take advantage of what the cards come out, which dictate a kind of Tetris-like shape. So either sort of straight line of 4, or a little sort of wiggly W or whatever it is. And you can rotate this shape in whatever manner you like to fit onto your map to try and manipulate it so you get as many points as possible. So points win prizes at the end of the day. Various conditions will allow you to gain coins, which score you more points each round. So there's kind of like a cumulative scoring ability. And the idea being, obviously, you've got to try and make the best map. So so a bit like Railroad Inc., you could end up with exactly the same map as everybody else, but you probably won't because a number of combinations are horrendous. And I think you do start with a slightly different map anyway, because there's a bunch of mountains and ruins on your map.
I gotta admit, I don't know if the mountains or ruins alter or not, but
I don't know.
You might be right.
I wasn't paying that much attention when I'm playing.
No, neither was I.
I assume they're in different positions, but I don't know. But anyway, so you put all of these things down. It's quite a big grid, and there are 4 rounds. I think it's 4.
Yes, it's 4 seasons.
That's right, yes. And at the end of each season, you change things and then you score. But during all of this, you have things called monsters that turn up. So it's like another Tetris shape, or at least another shape on the cube. And you don't place that. Your opponent does. So depending on what the arrow says on the map, on the card, either the person to your right or to your left will actually ruin your day and put this down.
So there's opportunities for dickery.
Yes, there is, John.
Yes,
there is.
Yes, there is.
And that's it. So it's really quite a light game. There's a kind of a timer that goes through, so it tells you when the end of the season is, so you know when the end of the season is going to be, so you know when you're going to score, so you have a reasonable idea of what's coming up.
Potentially, yeah, because what happens is the card that comes out that dictates what you've got to draw on your map this round will have a number on it, and the end of the season happens when all the cards add up to a certain amount. But of course, the amounts just vary. So you might be only one card left. There might be 3 cards left, kind of thing. You don't know what those cards are going to be.
Yeah. But it's very pretty. It's very straightforward. It's really easy and accessible, and it was damn good fun. And it turns out Steve is quite good at it.
That doesn't sound right.
No, there's a reason for that. There is actually a reason for it.
Did Steve cheat?
No. I spent like 15 years of my life as a mechanical engineer, where basically I was trying to fit things that other people wanted into boxes.
Okay.
Systems engineer.
Well, it's like, somebody wants a system and they've got a power supply and they've got this board and they've got this doobly what's it and it's got to go into this box, and you go, all right, we'll just put a plate and put a lid over it. Oh, no, it has to fit into this space, this size. Right. So basically, most of my actual professional life had been like making 3D models of these things and how they were going to fix in and how the box was going to be constructed. And most of that time was basically spent working out the optimum way in which things can go in and all the cables can be connected and still fit within this tiny little envelope that everyone needs to fit it into. Which means that when I play games like this, it's just second nature. It's like Castles of Mad King Ludwig, the full game,
yes.
not the Stonemaier one. Yeah, I'm amazing at that just because my brain just goes, it has to go there.
Yes.
And everyone else is there going, oh, where should it go? It only fits there. That's the best place for it.
There. Yes.
I too like games where there's a geometric aspect like that. It's satisfying.
No, I just end up playing Trismegistus and seeing through the Matrix. I think those kinds of games work for me. I can do this, then unlock this, and then this, and that feels this, and then I get this, and this, and this, and everyone's going, Isn't it fun how our brains work? But anyway, yes, Cartographer. So that's basically it. So you're basically making a map of an area, and you're scoring points for it. So that's it. Dead easy, dead straightforward, and remarkably fun. I genuinely don't think I would like the righty version, but I just find it too factual.
There we go. I was about to say, folks, you need to mark this in your calendars. Andy has effectively said he likes a roll and write.
I know. I feel dirty.
But no, I agree with you. It's because it's actually quite a clever version of it. The way there's actually a decent amount of strategy because you can see what all the objectives are and which objectives are going to come in which round. So there's a certain element of, do I go for the objective which will get me points now, or do I start placing things in preparation for the objectives that can come later on? And in reality, you want to do both, because you want to maximise your points.
You want lots of those.
Yeah.
Me too.
I got to admit, though, you're right there, Andy, because we played it on Tabletopia, and the Tabletopia version, because you can't draw in Tabletopia, you've got somebody's made it so you put little tiles on instead. And I don't want to play the real version now because I don't want to have to draw little monsters and little hills and trees and things.
Yeah, it was really, really lovely, actually. Just a little clink of the sound effect when you put the little tile down. That was lovely. So yes, that was good fun. So thank you to Adam for suggesting that to us. Well, Laura was basically swearing because she's still not used to the Tabletopia interface. She hates it, so she was really struggling with it. But as a game, it was pretty good.
I've just had a look because I find Etsy is normally good for places like this where do people with 3D printers.
Oh yeah,
will have already just started churning these out for pittance. That's where I pimp a lot of my games out from. But no one's done it yet for Cartographers.
There's a market.
And I'm going to be picking up my 3D printer next week.
Hello.
Socially distanced, of course.
Obviously.
So which kind is it? An FDM or
I don't know. An old mate of mine said, I've got a 3D printer that I'm not using anymore because I've upgraded to a fancier one. Do you want the old one? I was like, yeah.
It'll be a filament.
How much do you want for
printer.
it? And he said, don't worry, just come and pick it up.
Yeah, probably. Do you know what? I've never said this on the podcast, I don't think. I hate the term 3D printer.
Really?
Absolutely despise it, yeah.
Not specific enough.
Well, no, because I've been using this technology for 20 years.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And it's only been called 3D printing in the last 10.
Come on then, Steve. Illuminate us. What should we be calling them?
Well, technically it should be called rapid prototyping because that's what it was originally called.
Okay.
But the problem is when that was the resin vat, which is the stereolithography, which is you have a vat of resin and a laser cures the resin layer by layer, but semi-cures it, then you put it in an oven to fully cure it, which is the kind of 3D printing which miniature manufacturers are using, or you want to get like a really, really nice high detailed one. The other one is what John said the filament was, FDM, Fused Disposition Modeling, which is where you have a filament, which is basically like a big reel, like a fishing rod line reel that gets heated and like laid out like squirting toothpaste.
Okay.
And what it does, it gets melted just enough that it'll stick to melted plastic. And then that traces out layer by layer. But the problem is with that is your resolution is dictated by the diameter of the filament, and it will never be as good as the kind of laser stereolithography. And what annoys me is people started calling the stereolithography 3D printing because they called the FDM 3D printing because it worked like a printer. It was a printer head moving back, depositing stuff.
Okay.
Whereas the laser stereography stuff is not. And people were starting to go, oh, these 3D printers, look how good the 3D printers are. It's like, no. That's laser stereography. That's not 3D printing. It really wound me up because people go, I'll be able to do this at home soon. It's like, no, you won't. Not unless you want to spend £10,000 on one.
Yes, indeed.
But it is still just all printing stuff in 3D. So
no, it's not printing, though. It's laser stereography.
I've got to get a bit.
And at this point, we now start talking about involute gear forms, and we're here for 20 minutes.
Oh, you said it now. Right, I want to cut this bit.
That's all right, Steve. I used to do things like that on a sort of a literally nanometer scale when I did my PhDs. I was literally doing lithography and
you were doing the MEMS, were you?
Well,
the
MEMS stereography. kind of, yes.
When you're growing something on a silicate wafer, like ridiculously small, so small that like a dust mite gets in the way and gets blown up by the laser hitting.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, put a polymer layer down, and literally, if there was a grain of dust on there, it knackers the layer because it's only 10 nanometers thick. And you're like, oh, start again.
What's really cool?
Damn it!
What's really cool is these processes which didn't make it, because I remember like doing all this in uni, and there was the process whereby somebody designed one where it had like a pinhead, and rather than like laying a filament, it fired balls of molten plastic.
Nice. On
like a multi-axis. So it was like a cannon that would go around every single angle and would slowly fire these things. Apparently it looked awful at the end.
Hard to imagine why.
But my favourite one, which actually did look really cool, was paper. So the reel of paper, and then it would laser cut a layer of paper, cover it with a layer of very fine glue, then put another layer of paper on and laser cut that, another layer of paper. And basically what you were doing was 3D printing wood. Because you were making paper so dense, it turned into wood, effectively.
Is that how they make meeples these days? Because they can't surely. I mean, some of the detail on wooden meeples these days is ridiculously high, and I refuse to accept they cut those out.
I think that's just lasers.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, that is impressive because some of the details from the meeples I've got on, they're only like a centimetre high. I'm thinking, Jesus. But
when you work in lasers, you'd think you'd recognise that lasers can do some pretty precise work.
Well, they can. I'm just surprised they can do it to wood. Because wood is quite flammable.
Yeah, but it doesn't conduct very well.
You mean heat? Yeah, I suppose.
It pinpoints. If you got a laser and you pinpoint the heat on the laser, it just burns straight through it, straight down.
Yeah, that's the point, because it's burning it. Whereas in metal, obviously, you just chop straight through it with a CO2 laser. But burning is not very precise. Yeah,
no, it is. I'm not putting like a laser cut MDF piece of scenery or box insert.
No, I know. It's basically what CNC does, doesn't it?
And all the edges are brown.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Have you not seen like
you
can buy
brown
the
edges.
laser cut MDF? Yeah. I know. When you open the pack and it just stinks of burnt wood.
Yeah, sure.
So you get like the little nice laser cut insert for your box, and every time you open your box, it smells of burnt wood.
Oh yeah, that's.
I mean, I can understand that, but the thing is, the detail on that isn't that high. It's literally just rounded corners and stuff that's a couple of centimeters wide. Whereas the detail on a mini is like a millimeter or two wide. It's insane.
Seriously, people are making actually like war game terrain.
Wow.
With this stuff, it looks really cool.
Bloody hell, impressive.
And I've just noticed that the placement of Rory's microphone makes it look like he's wearing a witch's hat.
See, I was thinking it looked like a massive cock and balls.
all that, yeah. A posing pouch.
Very good.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that spotted that.
Right, I think that was quite a rabbit hole we went down, guys.
It was.
From cartographers to why 3D printers shouldn't be called 3D printers.
And that's
Yeah.
Cartographers.
So on the subject of Cartographers, me and Adam also played this week Role Player Adventures. Now, this is on Kickstarter right now, and you can play this on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator. So I implore you, if you are interested, go check it out on either of those platforms, because all the rules are there. You can play the full first scenario. It's all good to go. What Role Player Adventures is a adventure kind of choose your own adventure style board game. So you'll have your character, you've got a map of the terrain, you've got a little thing that moves around different areas, and when you get to a different area, you'll read a section out of the book. Sort of say, like, describe, you get to the goblin camp, explain what's in the goblin camp, and then certain things may trigger, like it says if it's the first time you've been there, it explains something. If you've got a certain keyword, which basically means, like, if you've set fire to the Knoll camp, you might have Knoll as your keyword, and then that'll tell you to read a different section.
Okay.
What's really cool about it, though, is the way they've tried to stick to the kind of role player idea of coloured dice. So when you get into any conflict resolution, so like combat or a skill test, what you've got to do is you've got to roll dice to match a certain pattern. So it'll be coloured dice on a number. So you might need like a blue 3, a black 5, and then either a blue or black 4.
Okay.
And what you can do is you can either spend no resources to draw 3 dice out of the bag randomly, which means you don't know what colours you're going to get, or you can spend your skills to pick dice of a certain colour. So I think black is Constitution. It's the same. If you played Role Player, it's the same colour combinations. So I think black is Constitution, red is Strength, Wisdom is white. It's your standard D&D abilities. And what you'll do is you spend a cube from that stat, and that means you can draw that colour dice from it. And then what you've got is you've got a deck of cards in your hand, which are again based on your character class, which allow you to manipulate those dice. So it might be equipment like swords, armour, spell books, that kind of thing, which allow you to have a flip a dice or re-roll a dice or change the colour of dice or something like that. Now, what is interesting, if you're a role player person, you'll also be able to import characters you've made in the role player game into Role Player Adventures.
Now, that's quite cool.
That's really cool.
So you could play a game of Role Player and then import your role player into that in like one evening.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, it is a story-based game, so it is one of those games that you're going to play it once, and then you're going to have to leave it for a couple of years before you play that adventure again, because otherwise you remember what to do. However, there did seem to be a lot of options, so I think if you did replay it, you could do different routes and try different things out.
Okay.
So I could probably play that on a daily basis at the moment.
Yeah, basically.
Awesome. So, yes, I'm currently looking at the campaign at the moment. I have looked at it before and decided, no, resist, don't need it, but it does look pretty. It does look very good. There's a lot in the box.
You do need it. You do need it.
It's only the first adventure which is on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator, but it is really well put together. We didn't come up with a single problem.
Awesome.
I mean, we learnt this game from fresh. Neither of us have played this game before, so we basically booted up Tabletopia and learnt how to play it as we were playing, and we were up and running in half an hour.
Oh, that's really
pretty
good.
good going.
Yeah. For a game of
And
that size.
we didn't come across a single issue. Now, bear in mind, we've bought games, got them home, and struggled with certain aspects of the rules. We didn't have a single problem with this at all. The rule book was really well written. It was graphically spot on. There wasn't any mistakes, because it's like a choose your own adventure style book. So one misprint on that can
really
send you to the wrong
Turn
paragraph.
to page 97.
And off you go.
You mean 98? No, 97. You die in a pit. I'm in a tree. What are you doing?
I'll just skip back a bit and try that again.
My thumb was in it. My thumb was in it.
That's
You
what I
see,
meant.
my thumb was in it. So here's a question. It sounds like 2 games that we already own. I say we, me. And John, actually. It sounds like a combination of, or indeed alternatives to, both Too Many Bones,
Yes.
because of the campaign and role character building aspect of it, and also City of Kings.
I would also say it's got a good dose of time stories in there as well.
Ooh, yes, because of the branching
Because
storyline.
it's the branching storyline, yeah. Now, I would describe... I see what you're going with the Too Many Bones, but Too Many Bones is that kind of very tactical combat, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I mean, it's only chips on the board. It's not miniatures. It's this pile of chips. The combat in this, again, is just matching dice. So combat's quite quick. But it feels stressful though, because you're there going, "Oh, do I want to spend a strength token? We might not be able to rest after this." Now, in the introductory adventure, it ended up we could rest after every single combat, so it wasn't an issue. But there was a definite thing of, "Oh, do we really want to spend this? Ooh, do we go all in, or do we be conservative here?" kind of thing.
Well, that's good.
And it's definitely an emphasis on the story, so it did feel like almost like a choose your own adventure book, or fantasy book. With an extra layer of extra stuff on top, the physical map, the tokens, cards, and such like. But it had a little bit element of the Fantasy Flight ones with the numbered on, like
Fighting Fantasy. Steve Jackson.
No. So the Fantasy Flight ones with the numbered cards. Fallout.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Like Fallout, yeah. So you got a big deck of number cards. So it'll be like, come to this place and take item 56. You go for item 50.
Right,
item
yeah.
Deck, 56. So if you played, like I said, if you played Time Stories or Unlock, it's similar to that in that regards.
Okay. Interesting. It'd be interesting to see how many adventures it comes with, as you say, because if you've got more, if it was only like 5, then you're like,
Yeah, I've got to admit, if it's like Time Stories and it's only like 5 or 6, then it's not going to be worth it. I need to look at the Kickstarter and see how many it's got. That introductory one took us, with learning the rules, about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Right, okay, so
that's
that was
a
pretty
decent
speedy.
Yeah, so it's quite...
Here we go.
Go on.
Man looks up campaign on Internet Live and considers clicking. Roleplayer Adventures has 11 adventure books that form a continuous campaign and one infinitely repayable side quest that can be played at any time.
Oh.
In a session of Roleplayer Adventures, you'll explore new areas and blah, 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 blah. So there you go, 11 books and one infinitely replayable side
So
quest.
that's 11 books. So is that 11 adventures? So
Yes, 11
Sounds
adventure
like it.
books that form a continuous campaign. So it sounds like there's 11 discrete adventures that form one campaign.
yeah. And do you think this is the type of thing where you're going to want to have the same people playing each mission each week?
Yes, because you're going to get XP and you're going to advance.
Okay.
And one of the things, like your notoriety with certain factions went up. So you'd got a bonus with this faction, a penalty with that faction as you were playing.
So this sounds like it will almost certainly benefit from many, many expansions. Not that I'm going to assume that they've already thought of that. I'm sure they will have done. But also, I think the replayability of it will come through playing with different characters, because obviously you'll generate an almost infinite number of different characters through playing role player.
Do you have to have role player to play this? Or does it come...
No.
So it comes with characters as well? Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Comes with characters as well, yeah.
But you've got the option.
You got the option. And what's...
Yeah, and I think they've done that on the Kickstarter. I think you can actually buy it with everything for role player as
You
well.
can indeed.
Eye-watering.
Yeah,
amount.
the base pledge is $100.
and that gets me the Adventures game.
It gets you Roleplayer Adventures base game. You can pay $135 US for Immortal Night, which is the base game and Nephras's Judgment expansion. So that'll probably add other adventures, I would imagine. And then there is the World of Ulos All In, which is $400. So that's quite a lot of money, but that is all of this stuff, all of the stuff, all of roleplay, and there's tons and tons of stuff that comes with roleplay. There's like boxes
Plus
and
all
boxes
the
and boxes of it.
promos and everything, isn't it?
Promos, extra cards, Fiends and Families expansion for roleplay, which is massive. There's a big box version of it. You get a campaign mat, neoprene things. You get metal coins, dice tower, lots and lots. There's a lot of pimp in there, to be fair.
Yeah,
Even I'm saying
that's the same price as your kitchen floor, Randy.
Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, which one would I get more enjoyment from?
Well, if you didn't have a floor in the kitchen,
Yeah. I was about to say the same.
I've got slippers. What do you need a floor for?
Wouldn't there be a hole?
we've got a floor there now
Boards.
already. That'll do.
Exactly. There'd be boards. Oh, that floor's getting destroyed. It's horrible. So that's Roleplayer Adventures.
Wow.
Sounds good. So is there a...
It's good. I was impressed by it.
It sounds lighter than Too Many Bones then, but a similar sort of idea.
Yeah, it's a different focus. So whereas Too Many Bones was a very simple, you drew a card and that card usually gave you 2 options at the end of it, didn't it? This felt a bit more like a game of almost like D&D light.
Okay.
Because you could go back and you could go different places in the map. You didn't have to keep going forward, for instance. You could go back and reinvestigate a place you'd already been. And based on what you'd done, you may have actually get different descriptions when you go back to places because you unveiled these keywords did certain things. You got a keyword. You got a keyword. When you go back to a place, you may get the option to do it. And the way it did items was quite good. The way it did items was similar to Unlock.
Okay, yeah.
Or the other escape room type games. So there's like a key. So the key was like item, 46. But if you wanted to see what the key did in location B, you just went to B46.
Okay.
B46. Oh, the key does nothing, kind of thing. You know.
Nice.
Or you can't find a keyhole, kind of thing. It was really clever. So it meant that you like. Oh, it wasn't one of those things like if you have the key, you can now unlock the door. It was like, oh, does the key unlock anything here, kind of thing? But
interesting. Okay.
So
yeah, because you're right. Go on, Rory. Sorry.
Oh, so from what you're saying, I'm just picturing in my head, and it reminded me a lot of Gloom of Kilforth. And I don't know whether I'm way off the beat here, but it sounds like Gloom of Kilforth, but with an adventure that you're following as opposed to one that you're just randomly exploring.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of that. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to stick to it's the Fighting Fantasy Plus. It's the basics of Fighting Fantasy with this descriptive text explains what's going on, but with a board game on top of that, which gives you these skill checks, these combats, exploration, and that kind of thing.
Okay. It sounds.
I didn't think
great.
Gloom of Kilforth when you were saying it.
It sounds great.
It does. Yeah.
It just does.
And it sounds like it's got a better rulebook than Too Many Bones as well, because Too Many Bones' rulebook is bloody awful.
Do you know what? Every time you mention Too Many Bones, part of my brain just shuts down a little bit.
Really? I'm surprised. Yeah. I really am, because I think you'll like it.
But I really hated Triplock by that publisher, game designer.
Yes, by Chip Theory.
So every time you mention it just automatically no.
It's weird, Rory. I think it'd be interesting to see if their next game is any good. Because we had a mixed reception, us four, between us, to Cloudspire.
Did we? I thought we all agreed it was bollocks.
It is, because it is bollocks.
I felt that I'd played the demo on a choke chain, so I had no idea what the game actually was. And I've heard a very similar response to actually people who've reviewed Cloudspire. It's kind of like, yeah, that's not a bad thing in itself. Actually.
Nor was that a surprise.
Yeah, we knew it was a MOBA when we went in.
That means it's going to be dull, because every MOBA that's tried to become a board game has been shit.
Oh, Andy, with your preconceptions.
That have turned out to be demonstrably true on all three occasions.
But anyway, they did Triplock, which was awful. They did Cloudspire, which, I said I'd like to play it again, but the jury's out that, people don't seem to be raving about it. And then they did Too Many Bones, which is brilliant, but the rulebook and the way it describes how to play the game is so bad that it feels like running against a brick wall for 10 minutes, and then you suddenly go, oh, that's how it's supposed to work.
Yes.
And then you go, oh my God, this game's amazing.
Yes, no, I think the next one will be the proof of the pudding. But didn't you say to me the other day that Chip Theory have got a bunch of new designers?
The rumour I've heard is a bunch of designers from Fantasy Flight Games have jumped ship to them.
Ooh. That will be interesting.
So that will be interesting to see what they've got next, yeah. Of course, we have been playing a lot more RPGs lately. One of the things we've been playing over the last few weeks is we've played a little mini campaign of Star Trek Adventures, which is the 2D20 based RPG from Modiphius, based in basically the Star Trek universe and any aspect of the Star Trek universe you want it to be, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
Quick question. Could you reskin a game of Star Trek Adventures to be Red Dwarf?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, definitely not. However, we'll go on to a future episode. We also played Alien around the same time, and I reckon you could skin Alien into Red Dwarf.
Nice. Okay.
Interesting.
It'd be a very jarring change of tone, though.
Yes, you would.
Smegging hell.
Anyway, yeah, so Star Trek, it's one of Modiphius' 2D20 systems. So what this means is whenever you do a skill check, you'll have two sets of attributes, and you'll add your skill numbers from both of these attributes together, which give you a number, and you roll typically 2D20, though you may roll more, you may roll less, and have to get under this number. So if you roll under that number, it's a success. Number of successes depends on what the GM tells you is going to be the problem.
And is that you're adding your dice together? Or that's two chances?
Yeah.
Two chances. Each chance is a success.
Yeah, gotcha.
Lots of them. because some things may require multiple successes. Like, for instance, the first game we had, we ended up in a fight with some Romulans. Now, Andy's character was the security chief, so he was there blasting away. I, however, was the medic. Basically, mean I couldn't hit a barn door with a pea shooter. I basically might as well have just not bothered. And in fact, the second round of combat, I didn't bother because it wasn't worth it. Because I needed 3 successes, and I was rolling 2 dice.
You should have been on hand to heal the shooty people, right?
The shooty people didn't need healing because we're too damn good.
They're too damn good. Anytime we got near him, up.
Can I heal you? Any healing? No, fine. Can you just go away, please? Bit weird.
I've got a tricorder and everything. Cough.
So what we did play, we played the introductory scenario that's inside the main book, isn't it?
Yes, it took us through the kind of the introductory stages of the game, and you can definitely tell the game was doing that because it started to introduce different aspects of it along the way, plus the one very entertaining aspect of it that if you are not familiar with Star Trek, although as people who listen to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you probably are, that Star Trek has teleporters, transporters. And every single scenario came up with a contrived reason that we couldn't use the transporters because transporters, it turns out, break the game.
Really?
Was there a lot of ionizing radiation in the atmosphere?
There was, John. There absolutely was, yes.
Every time it was like, oh, right, there's someone in the shuttle. The shuttle's broken down. It's like, 4 astronomical units away, and they're heading towards that nebula. Oh, we'll teleport them out. Oh, you can't teleport them out.
No, you can't do that. No, there's like magnetic ore in the floor that's scattering the beam and sort of cough. They never had this problem on the Enterprise.
Yeah, they did. Whenever they needed a shuttlecraft to crash on a planet, they always had that problem.
Well, that's true. That's fair. It was in the script a lot. That's true.
There's 2 people that aren't getting on very well at the moment. Let's put them in a shuttlecraft together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to be fair, Sid proved why that rule was in place, or that scenario device was in place, because the one time that it forgot to mention it, we had this massive fight, and Sid just teleported half the enemies away to the middle of nowhere. Just went, right, just teleport them out.
Oh bollocks.
Teleport them into deep space. Okay, we've won.
Pretty much exactly what happened.
Yeah, pretty much exactly what happened.
So really, the teleporters, you can't use the teleporters.
You can. It's just many of the scenarios have a reason why you can't. So it's basically to stop you doing that, because otherwise it would just take the piss and there's no point in playing. So the idea is that obviously you are supposed to be put into these positions where you work as a team and actually do some Star Trek rather than just.
I'm just trying to think from the TV shows, there weren't that many situations where they would go, right, we can just solve this with a teleporter or the transporter. I'm getting more the T's confused.
Yeah, you guys need to stop using the word teleporter. That's bugging me too.
Yeah, but there weren't that many from the TV show, so I feel a little bit almost disappointed that the scenarios are set up where you're not allowed
as John pointed out, wherever you could solve the entire episode with a transporter, it wouldn't work that episode for some reason. So. It's just that. It's just a plot device. That's all it is.
Yes.
Because it was quite game-breaking. And you mentioned teamwork, actually, which is I found really quite cool. Because these skills were so specific, you did need a full crew. So you had 6 attributes, which basically would add to skills, and then 6 skills. And because these 6 skills were so different, it ended up you did need a decent crew of people that had those spread of skills, and everyone had their moment to shine, providing everyone had taken a character which fits that role. So Andy was security, so as soon as a fight happened, Andy was off we go. I was, medics, and then off we go kind of thing with that. Sid was sensors.
Yeah, he was the con sort of guy. He was the driver, basically.
Yeah.
And Derek was the sort of XO, so he had a bit more communication sort of talk about him. But he was pretty tasty in a fight as well, so hand to hand more than anything else. So, yeah, we had a reasonable spread.
I was going to be your science officer, but science officer must have got waylaid at Riser or something.
Actually, Ben was the science officer, or at least an approximation of, because he took on the role of. Well, no, he kind of did a sort of a slightly more. Well, no, in the sense of the character, because he did a sort of like Steve was a sort of engineer medic. Ben's character Thunk, who turned out to be a Noonien Sung android. was mostly engineering, but a little bit of science as well. So he could do a lot of that side of things. So, but we also found out that androids are quite broken in the game as well.
Yes.
They can basically do everything, which I suppose is representative of Data on Next Generation, but it does make the rest of us feel a little redundant.
So you just need a team of 6 androids then, right?
Yes, basically, yes.
Well, no. We just needed 2. We just needed somebody in security and the android, and that was it.
Pretty much.
Because basically what would happen is me and Sid was specialist science, I was specialist medicine and engineering. And every time we came to do science and engineering stuff, like we and Sid would go like, our score's 12, and Ben would go, I'm 16. Right, off you go then, Ben. Go on.
If it didn't need shot, Ben did it. And if it needed shot, I did it.
It's a shame that it sort of feels a little bit broken like that.
Well, it will obviously very much depend on the scenarios. That's the thing, the beauty of it, because the first scenario we did, the first session we played, I think we played about 4 or 5 sessions for the whole campaign. First session we did, Steve looked extremely bored and grumpy because he didn't do anything. But that's because the first scenario was basically just a gunfight. So my character waded in and shot everybody, and Steve had very little to do. The second session we played, the roles were completely reversed. So basically, I stuck my thumb up my arse for half the adventure, and Steve did everything because it was all medics and science and all that sort of thing. So
You stuck your thumb up your ass, and then the medic had to try and extract it.
yes.
See, the more you guys talk
again,
about this,
Andy.
the less I want to try Star Trek Adventures.
It is
now.
good, but it is very scenario driven, which again, it is like Star Trek. You know, you have a full crew, you know, you have people who are good at certain things. So it really does play into that. The one thing I found, I'm going to say restrictive from a kind of just a generic role-playing point of view, is the fact that you really do have to play it like Star Trek. So if you aren't familiar with Star Trek and you aren't like a massive Star Trek fan or nerd, then you might find it a bit weird because you do play as a crew and there are rules and regulations to Starfleet.
Okay.
I'd still like to try it.
It's worth playing.
It's worth playing. I mean, I'm not as enamoured with it as Andy, but I'm not as a big of a Star Trek fan. Because, and I don't think that was not necessarily the Star Trek issues. I didn't like the character creation. There's a fantastic website which basically takes you through character creation, which basically says, right, here's where you were born, here's what you did when you grew up, here's what happened when you joined Starfleet, and you add all these things in, and it makes basically your entire history, your career, up to you the point we're in the mission.
That's cool.
That's really handy.
But
there's 2 aspects to the rules, and it ended up, I thought these were minor aspects, and it ended up these are like the 2 most important aspects of the game. You pick focuses and
values,
that's the one. And the rule, and as you're making this, it says, and pick a focus. You know, mine was like I grew up on a mine, so pick a focus like geology or, you know, demolitions tech or something like that. And you kind of went, okay, I don't know what any of these are. There's not a list of them anywhere. These aren't like a pre-described list. It's just, you know, something which is something you're supposed to be good at. Well, it ends up when you actually come to doing these tests, these focuses are ultra important because if you can convince the GM that you can use that focus, it gives you a bonus on one of your skill tests.
Right.
So I ended up with a really crap character because the focuses I picked didn't actually apply to the game in any way. So I picked things that made sense from the character background. What we're playing is like, I haven't got any focuses I can use. The other aspect, I've forgotten the name already, Andy.
So you're a medic with specialism in explosives. So Andy's got his thumb stuck up his ass, but there's only one thing for it. We're going to blow it out.
No, there are focuses, values, and talents.
So the talents was obvious because the talents was stuff that described you as a list of them.
Yeah, so one of my talents was, say, for example, I could protect another member of the crew if I did something as part of my action previously, for example, it would make something more difficult for the opposition. Your talents, your focuses were the ones like you do things like every day, like weapon specialization or con or starship recognition or anything like that. So if you're doing something to do that, then that would. But it's the values that were the hard ones. They were really abstract, and I don't really think they add that much to the game. The one problem I have is that you make all of this interesting backstory, and very little of it actually matters.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Another really cool thing, and I think this is generic in all the D20 systems, but you get these things called momentum and threat.
Okay.
If you get extra successes, you can gain momentum, which is basically a little bonus. And then when you're doing tests, you can spend that momentum the simplest way to roll an extra die. But there's other ways in which you can spend momentum to do stuff. Like a lot of skills will say, oh, spend the momentum to do this.
So does it work like inspiration in some ways from D&D? But you accumulate it as opposed to being awarded it?
Sort of.
You say sort of, but both your faces say, no, shut up, Rory.
Not really, no, because with inspiration, you have to say you're going to declare it before you do something with it. Well, I mean, you kind of do with momentum as well, but they operate in different ways, whereas inspiration only gives you a reroll. Or, no, it gives you advantage on a roll, doesn't it? Whereas momentum gives you... It's a bit more flexible, whereas, as Steve says, you can usually buy an extra die or extra 2 dice, or you can get more information if you do like an investigation roll. You know, I'll piss around with this computer and try and get in, so I'll try and get a bit more information, so the DM would read you an extra bit of bump about, you know, what's going on. Or you can spend it to avoid getting wounded. You can spend it to move a bit further or faster.
A range of uses.
Yeah, it's kind of sort of generic currency, but again, it is limited. You only get it when you sort of overroll on a success, for example.
And it's a group resource as well, so you don't get your own momentum. It's momentum for the entire group.
Okay.
So you've got to be agree with each other when you're going to use momentum and when you're going to save it. But what is also quite interesting as well, because the game is set up in scenes, and if you move into a new scene, you lose all your momentum.
Oh,
you lose one of them, not all of them.
Well, I saw was it just one? Was it? I thought there was some scenes where we lost all of it.
If you start a new adventure, a new if you start a new episode, basically you start with no momentum. But if you're in an episode, which I think is 3 acts, then if you start a new scene or an act, then you lose a momentum. I think that's how it works.
So there's an impetus to spend it as well. It's not just a case of hold it out for like the big thing. You're there. It wants you to spend it, so spend it. And in fact, there were points in the game where we were like spending it to roll extra dice because we knew there's more chance of us getting more momentum.
Okay.
So you really are using that momentum to keep moving forward. Get more successes, keep doing stuff.
It reminds me a little bit of the sanity in Deep Madness in a way. That's used in a similar sort of way because I'm not going to go too deep into Deep Madness here, but rather than sanity being a bad thing in, say, something like Mansion of Madness, if you get horror and you go mad, whereas in Deep Madness you can spend sanity to like roll an extra die, for example, when you're shooting, or to move an extra space, or your character abilities basically depend on spending sanity. But having horror, for example, is not necessarily a bad thing in Deep Madness. It works slightly differently, but it's a similar sort of idea. It gives you a flexibility about how you want to approach certain situations, which is quite nice. But threat works in the same way. So,
yeah, the converse of that is threat, which is what is the resource the GM has to spend.
Right.
So you can actually, if you have no momentum, you can decide to spend threat instead. So you give the GM a threat token, or 3 threat tokens, or whatever it is, and you can get an extra die. The idea of threat is that the GM can do exactly that. He can make your life harder in the future. So it's kind of jam today sort of thing. Whereas later on, you've got 27 threat, and the DM, the DM's got ridiculous amounts of threat, and all of a sudden a ball cube turns up, and you think things are going well.
The players give the GM threat.
Yes. So if you're playing this on the table, remember we were playing on Roll20 because, of course, social lockdown and because we don't live anywhere near each other. But if you're playing in the real game, you'll have these as tokens in front of you, and you will have to hand a threat token to the GM.
And what's the benefit
to the
for the player to give?
Well, a good example, and this is a really good Star Trek example, is you're using your little phaser, and standard it's stun. But if you set that phaser to kill, you have to hand a threat because you've just escalated the situation.
Right. Okay.
You're shooting to kill rather than shooting to stun, so therefore the GM has a threat, and he goes, well, you've just made your life more difficult further down the line.
Okay.
Yes.
To kind of explain the system, this is Modiphius' 2d20 system, so it's the same system in all the books. And the only other rule book I've been looking through is the Dishonored one, and Andy will be familiar with Dishonored, the video games. In that, it's not threat, it's chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the video games, the more people you kill, the more the plague takes effect, and basically everyone comes run down. So this is in that it's the same system, but it's called chaos in that because it matches that scenario and that setting. But it's a really cool system because, yeah, it does. You can not spend threat, and it makes you terrified of spending threat because you know that the more threat the GM has, the bigger the baddies are going to be, the more dangerous the enemies are going to be, or the more lethal things are going to happen.
So literally the GM then can trade in the threat tokens to essentially buy monsters and buy attacks?
Basically, yes. It's not quite that simple. I think, if I remember right, and I've not actually read the books in that much detail, certainly not from the DM's point of view, obviously, because I've always been a player, so I don't want to ruin the stories, but I imagine that there are probably options for the DM, or the GM, I should say, in certain places, because otherwise it'll just be, right, I'm just going to spend 10 threat and 15 Romulan starships turn up, because that would be ridiculous. There are probably options within the book that say, for 5 threat you can buy this, or for 10 threat in this situation you can do this. I would imagine that's probably how it works.
So you'd have levels of character as well. So if you're a level 3 character and you've got 3 threat, no levels.
Okay. No, you don't. The characters are fairly fixed. Once you've got a character, they don't really improve much. They do eventually, really. It takes ages to what you'd consider level up. What happens instead is when you get to a point where you've done enough to earn, let's say level up, but it's not actually level up, is that you can monkey around with your stats a bit. So you can take 1 point from one thing and put it into something else, so you can kind of balance your character around.
It's like respecing your character, basically, isn't it? As Paul described it, it was the GM. You level up sideways.
Yeah.
So rather than getting better, you tweak your character to be better suited. So rather, if you started off as a too generic character, you can start tweaking and specialising it. If you've been too specialised, you might make it more general, depending on what the rest of your bridge crew is.
See, it's interesting because it brings me to my next question, which was going to be about as a GM, does this lend itself to being able to have homebrew stories, homebrew content? Because it sounds, from what you got these scenes, you got these adventures in these chapters. It seems like there's a big narrative focus. But now what you've just told me about the characters, it doesn't feel like there's much character growth if all you're doing is just moving points from here to there. And that's what I think. For me, a role-play game is about the growth of the character through the narrative.
But you have to put yourself in the Star Trek universe here. It's not necessarily the character's growth in terms of skills or power. It's character's growth in terms of richness of the soul and the experience generated. To put it in a very Patrick Stewart way, is that you go through these experiences and you enrich your character through experience rather through power and strength and magical might. You don't get bigger sticks to hit things with because that's, you're limited by the technology of the day. Yeah. You improve your character through tweaking it very slightly. You read a few books, you have a richness of experience, which then tends your character in one direction or the other. But you do it as a team, as a crew. And there is a lot of opportunity to role play. But as I say, I think it's slightly hampered by the fact that you are Star Trek, you are Starfleet, and there are rules and regulations to follow. So you're kind of playing within a soap opera, so there are boundaries.
That's fair.
I also say as well, if you are, it works much better if everyone is a real Star Trek fan. Because, I mean, as Andy would, as the words would say as we played it, you can Star Trek the shit out of it. Because one of the things was, I'm engineering. It was a point halfway through when you start talking absolute bollocks to try and convince the GM to allow you to use that focus. It's like, you can't use warp theory on this problem. And I was like, but what if we reroute the power from the warp core to the full sensor array, which allows us to disembobulate this? And I basically made this thing up, and everyone went, that makes perfect sense to me. And the GM went, you're right, from a Star Trek point of view, that was brilliant. Yes, you can use your focus.
It is almost a game of bartering with the GM to see how much shit you can get away with.
It does.
It really is.
It does sound like a wildly different type of game to D&D, but also to what I was expecting from Star Trek. And I'm both interested to play it, but I'm also very ambivalent at the same time about playing it. I'm really on the fence.
I think you've not played any RPGs that aren't Star Trek, aren't D&D. Is that right?
I've given Faith a bash. I've played a little bit of Faith a long time ago. But yeah, I don't have a great wealth.
Yeah, okay.
So, but yeah, I see your point.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's worth it. I mean, a lot of this is they've as I said, they tweak this 2D20 system to fit the setting, and I think they've actually done really well. I mean, there's some places where I think it doesn't work, and some places where it work brilliantly. I said more of it was just the explanation of focuses and values. I think it could have done with a lot more ideal of how that worked. But where it did work, and the bit which impressed me the most was Starship Combat. Because that was brilliant.
Yes, that was really cool.
Absolutely brilliant. What it does is it gives you an actual desk and says, right, this is your station during combat. So, like battle stations, everyone gets to their position. And your console will give you certain options. When it comes to your turn in the combat round, you pick an option off this console. So you basically get given a little list of what that console can do. So, for instance, I was engineering. So I was all sensors and sensor sweeps and shield repairs. So I could either like try and boost the shields, or I could try and scan the enemy for a weakness.
And that worked well.
Yeah, so the first round of combat, I scanned the enemy for a weakness using, because that's what I was good at. We got a good result on that. Andy security, so Andy then uses the bonus I gave him due to scanning the enemy to fire the photon torpedoes, and then Sid's the pilot, so he does evasive maneuvers to try and avoid the previous shot. And I thought that was really clever. The way
Yes, it was very, very cool.
And you could even, like, in the middle of combat, it's like, oh shit, the warp core's going down. Someone's going to get down to engineering. Well, I'm going to have to spend my turn pegging it down to engineering to try and fix the warp core while you lot keep us
put the rocks
alive.
back in the console. Yeah. Yes, it was very good. It definitely came into its own, and you can in certain tests and stuff during the game as well. You can use you can gain help, so you can perform an assist. So either a character can perform an assist if you're doing a particularly complicated task, which adds a die, or you can get the ship to assist you. So, for example, if you're trying to find something on the surface, and you don't know where the hell you are, for example, you can get the ship to scan the local area, for example, and that'll the ship would, because the ship has its own stats as well.
Yeah, it's its own character sheet.
That's cool.
Yeah, so and you can customize the ship very slightly as well when you sort of level sideways.
The other thing as well is it's a full crew of the ship is. So you've got your character, but there's nothing to stop you playing a different member of the crew.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So you could play crewman Bob if you wanted to down in the warp nacelle. Or you could play the transporter chief, who basically just sits there doing bugger all for most of the day. Yeah. And that's it.
So you can, as a player, you can almost just jump into an NPC. And that NPC suddenly becomes a PC. Nice.
Yeah, because the NPCs and all the enemies and stuff have got character sheets as well. So, they all have their own sort of stats and things like that, as we discovered when we started shooting up the big bads. It turns out they have their own talents and values and things like that as well, which is kind of fun. So, yes, there are drawbacks with it that we've mentioned, but I think overall it's actually a pretty good system. Again, I think Steve's caveat is definitely true, that if you are a Star Trek fan, you'll probably prefer it if you're not.
Yeah. And there's certain aspects of the rules that I didn't get the damage dice. I did not understand. I mean, we were playing at Roll20, so a lot of the rules are a little bit obfuscated by what the template does.
Oh, yeah.
But I did not understand how those damage dice work.
They're D6s usually. So they're six-sided dice, and they've got a 1, a 2, or a Starfleet kind of triangle-y symbol on them, or a blank. I think there's a few blanks as well. I can't remember exactly the ratio on each die, but it's probably a single 1, a single 2, a single triangle, and then three fails, I think. And then the numbers represent that number of points of damage, and then the Star Trek symbol-y thing, that represents an effect depending on what weapon you're using and how you've used it. So if you have a look at your character sheet, there's like the charge. So, for example, if you've got like a penetrating weapon, for example, then that effect would take precedent then if you got that little sort of symbol. So if you rolled out the four symbols, a 1 and a 2, you'd do 3 points plus whatever that symbol meant. So if it did penetrating damage, it would automatically ignore, say, 4 points of armor.
Yeah.
Or something like that anyway. So it would vary depending on what you were trying to do.
There's a lot of extra gump for the book, the game as well. They've got so many extra books with different quadrants and different rules for characters and different types of adventures and things like that. And as I said, you can play in any Star Trek area you want. it's all in there and covered. Although it does seem to be concentrating on the next gen area, I found.
Yes, it generally does, because I mean that's more contemporary, even though it was hilariously 30 years ago. Here's a scary thought for you, boys. 2050 is closer to us than 1990.
Oh,
how depressing is that?
That's it. That's it. End of the podcast.
Wow, how old do you feel now? But yeah, so you're right, Steve. It is generally, but there's nothing to stop you playing in sort of Kirk era Star Trek rather than Picard and Voyager.
on a slight aside, is there a decent Battlestar Galactica roleplay game that you guys know about?
Not that I know of.
I'm
No.
aware of. No, there's a really good board game, but it's not in print anymore.
I just thought that would make a really interesting RPG to have one player as Asylum from the beginning. That concept.
You need to listen to our Alien chat, which I think we're going to mention in the next episode.
Spoiler.
Yes. No, Alien is very different.
So, thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed us, please give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you'd like to give us a chat, we are on Twitter at PolyhedronC. We're at Facebook, facebook.com Polyhedron Collider. We're not on Instagram. No,
we are on Instagram. Yeah.
We're on Instagram. Yeah. We're on Instagram. And I think we're also on Pinterest, but
Are we?
Don't bother.
Ow.
Yeah, I set up a Pinterest years ago, but never mind. If you speak to us individually, I'm Wahoffenmadenga on Twitter.
I am at Sonic H with a 0.
I'm at John_Cage.
And I'm at Rory J. Summers.
And if you want all of us, we're at Polyhedron C.
We've also on the Board Game Geek Guild 2726.
And there's polyhedroncollider.com if you want to read some really old news articles or some reviews, or even some of the most anticipated games of 2020.
Yes, because Rory and I haven't written a goddamn thing for a very long time.
Neither have I. It's just the podcast on there at the moment.
At least I never did it. There was never any pretense there.
You did it once, John. You're part of the group now.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Anyway, we should be back soon. But until then, happy gaming.
Bye.
Catch you later.
Bye-bye.